My parents didn't come to my wedding because they were on vacation, so I broke off relations with them. My name's Mitchell Dana, and I'm 32 now. This happened 2 years ago, and it's taken most of that time to find the clarity to write it down. I've always tried to be the reasonable one in the family, the person who keeps the peace, stays flexible, gives the benefit of the doubt. And for years, that worked. Or at least, I thought it did. Until I got engaged. Her name is Joni. We met in college sophomore year and stayed together through cross-country internships, job switches, and apartment mishaps. 7 years later, I proposed to her during a quiet dinner in our apartment. It wasn't some cinematic gesture. It was private, heartfelt, and very us. She said yes, and we both cried. We picked a wedding date not long after. October 14th. It was the anniversary of our first date, and every year we celebrated it, even when things were hectic. It had meaning. More than that, it felt grounding. Familiar. We booked a venue about an hour outside our city, an old barn converted into an event space, surrounded by oaks and rolling hills. I still remember how happy we were when we walked out of the booking office. For the first time, it felt real. My family seemed happy too, at first. My mom, Carla, sent me a list of possible centerpiece ideas. My dad, Jerry, joked about learning how to dance for the first time in 40 years. My younger sister, Rachel, 29, sent a string of exclamation points when I told her the date. And my older brother, Dennis, 36, who was always more stoic, just said, "Good for you guys." It was calm. Normal. That didn't last. It started with a message from Rachel. She texted me 3 weeks after the invites went out. "Hey, just realized your date is the same week as the annual trip I take with the girls. We've had it planned forever. Can we talk?" I read it twice, confused. I asked her when the trip was. She said October 10th to 17th. Our wedding was the 14th, a Saturday. I asked if she could fly back just for the day. She said it would be tough. Flights are expensive, and the group's been planning this for a year. I told her we'd already booked everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. We had 80 RSVPs already confirmed. I kept it calm, I figured she was just asking. But she wasn't. 2 days later, my mom called. "Sweetheart," she said, "your sister's upset. She says she might not be able to come." "I know," I replied. "She told me. But we planned this months ago." She got the invite early. "I understand," Mom said, but then added, "It's just, is there any way to shift things a little? Maybe push it a week?" I sat in silence. "Mom, we booked the venue. Everything's locked in." She sighed. "I know. But Rachel's trip is important to her. And you know how close you two used to be." I felt something tighten in my chest. This was our wedding. One day. A milestone. And they were asking us to accommodate a leisure trip? I tried to explain that. She said I was being emotional. Then Dennis chimed in via text. "FYI, my company's leadership retreat is that same weekend. I might be late or have to miss it." At that point, it started to click. This wasn't a scheduling coincidence. It was a mindset. Our wedding was optional, only worth attending if convenient. Joni sat with me on the couch that evening. We were eating takeout, both a little quiet. "You okay?" she asked. I told her everything. She listened. She always does. Then she said, "This is going to hurt. But I think this is who they've always been. You just haven't needed to say no before." She was right. That hit hard. My family expected flexibility. And when we didn't give it, they interpreted it as rejection. Over the next 2 weeks, things got worse. Rachel started posting vague things online. My mom sent me articles about blending priorities during wedding planning. My dad stayed silent, which, for him, meant agreement by omission. We tried calling a family meeting on Zoom. It was a disaster. Rachel cried and said I was choosing Joni over blood. Dennis said he'd see if he could make it work. Mom said, "This isn't what family is supposed to feel like." I kept my voice steady and said, "We're not moving the date. It's important to us." The silence that followed was the loudest I've ever heard. Joni reached across the table and took my hand. Later that night, she whispered, "Even if it's just us, I'll still say yes." And I knew we were doing the right thing. The invitations had gone out. The venue was finalized. The caterers had our menu, and the photographer had visited the site. Everything that could be controlled was in place. But the things that mattered most, my family's presence, their support, were becoming more and more uncertain. Rachel stopped responding to texts entirely. My mother only replied with short, delayed messages like "we'll see" or "still talking with your sister." My dad never responded at all. Joni kept reminding me, "You didn't do anything wrong." I knew that. But it didn't stop me from feeling like I had. I stopped mentioning the wedding when I talked to extended relatives. It felt embarrassing, like inviting people to a party you knew your own family might not show up for. The kind of hurt that doesn't bruise, it lingers in silence. About 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from Uncle Ray, my dad's older brother. He'd always been a quiet man, not overly sentimental, but kind. "Just wanted to say I'll be there," he said. "Wouldn't miss it." I thanked him. I must have sounded tired because he added, "You don't have to carry all their noise. Sometimes people want you to fold so they don't have to feel uncomfortable." I'll never forget that. The night before the wedding, Joni's family threw a small dinner at the venue for everyone who'd arrived early. Her parents, her aunts, cousins, neighbors she'd known since childhood. Everyone was present, not just in body, but in spirit. There were toasts, laughter, old stories, warm welcomes. My family's side? 1 aunt. 2 second cousins. That was it. No mom. No dad. No Rachel. No Dennis. I hadn't received a single official RSVP from them. I kept glancing at the entrance during the dinner, expecting someone to walk in. They didn't. That night, Joni sat on the floor of our hotel room and said, "Tomorrow, we get married. No matter who shows up, I'm showing up. That's the only part that matters." I nodded. My voice didn't work. I just nodded. The morning of the wedding was clear, a little breezy, warm in that comforting autumn way. The venue staff were already setting up chairs and arranging flowers by the time we arrived. Joni went with her bridal party to get ready. I stayed behind, greeting early arrivals, checking the table arrangements, fixing small details. Then I got the text. From Rachel, "Hope it goes well today. Sorry again." That was it. No apology. No explanation. No regret. Just "sorry again." I didn't reply. I walked inside, into the quiet of the main hall, and stood there. Just stood. It took me a few minutes before I let myself cry. I wasn't crying because I felt abandoned. I was crying because I finally accepted they weren't going to be there, not just at the wedding, but at anything in my future that didn't cater to their terms. By 3 p.m., guests were arriving. Joni's parents brought coffee for the vendors. Her cousins made a playlist. Her grandmother handed me a folded note that said, "You're already part of this family. You always have been." I kept that note in my inside jacket pocket all day. The ceremony began at 4. The chairs were full except for the 3 in the front row labeled "Reserved, Dana Family." They stayed empty. Joni walked down the aisle like she wasn't missing a thing. And maybe she wasn't. Maybe I wasn't either. We read our vows through shaky voices and held each other's hands like they were the only anchor we'd ever need. The officiant smiled, pronounced us husband and wife, and said, "You may kiss your bride." We kissed. Everyone stood. And in that applause, I didn't hear absence. I heard presence. The people who showed up. Who loved without conditions. Who understood the meaning of a single day because it was never about the date. It was about showing you care. At the reception, we danced until our feet hurt. People laughed, toasted, ate too much cake. Sometime between speeches and the dance floor, one of Joni's uncles handed me an envelope. He said, "Someone dropped this at the front office with your name on it." I opened it. Inside was a check and a small card with my mother's handwriting. "We're sorry we couldn't be there. Hope this helps with expenses." That was it. No "we love you." No "we're proud." Just money and a placeholder apology. I folded it, handed it to Joni, and said, "You do what you want with this." She tossed it into her purse without a word. Later that night, our photographer showed us a preview picture, us dancing, eyes closed, surrounded by joy. That picture still sits framed on our bookshelf. And in it, I don't notice who's missing. Only who's holding me. 3 weeks passed after the wedding before I heard from anyone in my immediate family. Then, out of the blue, my mom sent a short message. Saw the photos. You both looked nice. Hope you're doing well. No mention of the 3 empty chairs. No mention of the missed ceremony or the cold silence before it. Just a single, sterile sentence. I stared at it for a while and didn't reply. 2 days later, she followed up with, "We'd love to come by sometime and bring a gift. Maybe we can put all this behind us." There it was. Not a conversation, a reset button. No acknowledgement of what had happened. No apology for prioritizing Rachel's vacation or Dennis's retreat. No questions about how I felt. Just a quiet expectation that we'd return to the status quo. Joni and I talked it through. "I'm not against reconnecting," I said. "But it has to mean something." Joni nodded. "I'll support whatever you need. Just don't lose yourself to keep them comfortable." That hit me. Because that's what I had done for years, bent myself backward to keep peace. But peace that requires silence isn't peace. I texted my mom back. "I think we need to talk first. Not just visit like nothing happened." She didn't reply for a week. Then my dad called. It rang 4 times before I answered. He opened with, "We didn't want things to get so messy." I stayed quiet. "We didn't mean to hurt you. But the timing was hard. Your sister's trip, my schedule." I stopped him. It wasn't about schedules. It was about priorities. He sighed. "We thought you'd understand." I did understand. That's the problem. I understood exactly where we stood. There was silence on the line. "I just don't want this to go on forever," he finally said. "We're still your parents." "I know," I said. "And I'm still your son. But I'm also someone who got married without you there. That doesn't disappear." He said nothing after that. We ended the call politely. No anger. Just resignation. A week later, Rachel messaged me. "Hey. I miss you. I know things didn't go right, but maybe we can meet up soon?" I didn't reply right away. I read it aloud to Joni, who frowned. "It sounds like someone who wants to skip the hard part." I eventually replied. "Happy to meet. But I want us to be honest. I'm not angry, but I'm still hurt." She responded immediately. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't think it would blow up like that." That was the theme. Not, "I'm sorry I hurt you." Just, "I didn't expect you to be upset." We met at a cafe 2 days later. She hugged me. I let her. I didn't hug back right away. We sat down. She ordered tea. I ordered nothing. She said, "I was shocked when you didn't answer my message on the wedding day." I looked at her. "You were shocked I didn't thank you for skipping it?" Her face fell. "I wasn't trying to be cruel," she said. "I just couldn't cancel the trip. I made a commitment. And I made one to my partner," I said. "You chose a vacation. That's fine. Just don't act like I'm the one who disappeared." She said something then that stuck with me. "I thought weddings were just a formality. I didn't think you'd take it so personally." That told me everything I needed to know. For her, for them, my life event had been optional. Something they'd show up to if it didn't interfere with their routine. I said, "It wasn't just a formality to us. We invited people we love. And we noticed who didn't come." She asked, "So is that it? We're just going to stay distant forever?" I shook my head. "No. But it starts with truth. And right now, I don't think you're ready for that." We ended it with a side hug. Awkward. Tentative. When I got home, Joni asked, "Did it help?" I said, "It helped me realize what I'm not willing to carry anymore." A few more weeks passed. Rachel started liking our posts again. My mom left a comment under a picture of Joni and me at a park, "So glad to see you both happy." It was surreal, like watching someone rewrite a memory in real time. Like the wedding hadn't happened. Like the silence, the absence, the apologies that never came were all erased with a smiling emoji. And that's when I knew what this really was. Not reconciliation. Not repair. But revision. They wanted to skip the consequences. To pretend they were part of something they didn't show up for. But you can't unburn a bridge. You can only choose whether to rebuild it plank by plank with honesty. So far, they hadn't picked up a hammer. By winter, Joni and I had found a rhythm. We moved into a new apartment with more natural light. She picked out a corner for her watercolor desk, I hung a set of shelves I'd built myself. We started talking about bigger things, trips we wanted to take, maybe even starting a family. And for a few peaceful months, things stayed still. Then came the holidays. We hadn't spoken to my parents in almost 3 months, not since my mother's vague comment on our photo. No calls, no invitations. I assumed we weren't welcome, and honestly, that suited me just fine. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived. It was a box from my parents. Inside were 2 sweaters, a candle, and a Christmas card that read, "Family always finds its way back. Love, Mom and Dad." Joni looked at me across the kitchen island and asked, "Do they think this fixes everything?" I didn't know. I wrote them a thank you note. Polite. Brief. Neutral. A few days later, I got a call from my dad. He asked if we wanted to come by for New Year's. No pressure, he said. Just a casual get-together. I hesitated. Will Rachel be there? He paused. Yes. And your mother too. I told him I'd think about it. That night, Joni and I sat at the table eating leftovers. She said, "You don't owe them your comfort." I know, I said. But I also don't want to spend my life angry. That's not what this is, she said gently. This isn't about anger. It's about boundaries. We didn't go. Instead, we had dinner with friends and walked through the snow-covered downtown, laughing and watching the fireworks through our mittens. That was when I realized something, I didn't miss them. I missed who I thought they were. But not who they were now. In January, we found out Joni was pregnant. It wasn't a surprise, we'd been hoping, but it was overwhelming in all the best ways. I cried more than I expected. Joni just smiled and held me while I wiped my face with the sleeve of her hoodie. We told her parents first. They were thrilled. Her mom knitted a tiny pair of socks that night. Her dad ordered a grandpa-to-be mug before we'd even left their driveway. We waited a while before telling anyone else. I wasn't ready for the chaos. When we finally did, word traveled fast. A cousin told a cousin. A neighbor mentioned it to my aunt. And soon enough, my mother found out, not from me, but from someone else. Her message came the next morning. I wish we didn't have to hear this secondhand. I hope we're still part of your future. It stung. Not because she was wrong, but because she still didn't get it. She thought we were keeping her out of something she had every right to be part of. But it wasn't about punishment. It was about trust. And she hadn't earned that back. A week later, Rachel reached out again. This time, she didn't ask to meet. She just said, "I heard the news. I hope you both are happy. I'm sorry for how things went." Really? That was the first message that didn't feel like performance. I thanked her. And for the first time, it felt like a real step. Small. But sincere. A month later, Joni and I held a small baby shower, mostly friends, her family, and a few cousins who'd supported us all along. My parents weren't invited. Neither was Rachel. That decision wasn't revenge. It was peacekeeping. After the shower, I got another message from my dad. Still hoping we can mend things before the baby comes. Family matters. I didn't answer. Because here's what I'd learned. Family isn't just people you share a name with. Family is who shows up when it counts, without conditions, without rewrites. It's the people who respect your boundaries, not the ones who make you feel guilty for having them. Joni's dad stood next to me that afternoon, watching her laugh with her friends and cousins. He said, "You know, she's always been good at choosing people who are kind. I think that includes you." I nodded. He clapped me on the back. "You're going to be a good father," he said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Our son, Calder, was born on a rainy Tuesday in late August. Joni labored for 11 hours. I held her hand the whole time. When she screamed, I whispered. When she cried, I pressed my forehead to hers and told her how strong she was. When Calder arrived, he had a full head of dark hair and Joni's nose. The hospital room was dim, quiet, warm. Joni held him against her chest and whispered something only he could hear. I don't remember breathing for those first few moments. Later, after the nurse had come and gone and the room settled, I stepped out into the hallway and turned on my phone. 3 missed calls from my mom. 1 from Rachel. A text from my dad, "We heard. We're happy for you. Please call." I didn't. I walked back into the room and sat next to Joni. She was humming to Calder, her fingers gently brushing his tiny forehead. That was all I needed to see. 2 days later, we brought him home. A few balloons tied to the door, meals in the freezer from friends, a hand-drawn card from Joni's nephew taped to our fridge, "Welcome baby Calder." I took parental leave from work and barely looked at my phone. A week passed. Then, Rachel sent a long message. She said she was sorry she hadn't been there for the wedding, sorry she'd let pressure and pride steer her choices. She said she didn't expect forgiveness overnight, but she hoped someday she could meet her nephew. I believed her. I wrote back. I told her this wasn't about punishment, it was about trust, and trust could be rebuilt. We met in the park 3 weeks later. She held Calder with shaking hands and cried quietly. She didn't try to explain anything. She didn't rewrite the past. She just said, "He's perfect." It meant more than she knew. But my parents, they didn't stop trying. My mother sent a gift basket. Diapers, a small stuffed fox, a card that said, "Congratulations. Love, Grandma." No name. No mention of Joni. No apology. Just Grandma, written like a title that was owed, not earned. Joni quietly placed the basket in the closet. We didn't bring it up again. Later that week, my dad emailed me. "You're a father now. I hope you'll think about what kind of family you want Calder to grow up around." That was the last message I answered. I wrote, "He'll grow up around people who show up, who admit when they're wrong, who respect others' lives even when they don't understand them. That's the kind of family I want for him." There was no reply. Months passed. The holidays came again. This time, we stayed home, just the 3 of us. Joni made cider, Calder babbled on a blanket, and I watched them like they were a painting I never wanted to stop staring at. The phone stayed quiet. A cousin messaged to tell me that Rachel had distanced herself from our parents too. "She says she finally gets it," he wrote. I hoped that was true. And then, like clockwork, my dad sent a message in January. It was short. "I regret how things turned out. I hope you'll forgive us one day." I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I was done chasing people who only ever walked halfway. It's been 2 years now. Calder's running through the house as I write this. Joni's painting in the next room, soft music playing through an old speaker. My mom hasn't reached out in nearly a year. My dad still likes the occasional photo online, the quiet, cowardly kind of support that never costs him anything. Rachel sends updates. We talk monthly. She knows we're rebuilding, slowly, truthfully. And she's okay with that. I've learned that peace isn't always about reunion. Sometimes it's about release. Letting go of the idea that people will change just because they should. Letting go of trying to fix what someone else keeps breaking. Letting go of guilt that was never mine to carry. I didn't lose my family. They walked away from a moment that mattered to me. And then they hoped I'd forget. But I didn't. I remembered. And I grew. Not out of spite, but out of hope for something better. And I found it. In Joni. In Calder. In the quiet life we built, free from demands we never agreed to. This is the family that showed up. And that's all I ever needed. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.